Got to pull up the agenda. All right. We good to go, Joe?
We are ready.
All right. I will call the meeting to order at 11:05 on January 29th, 2011. Let's start off with roll call. I'll start. Joe Simolis, City of Middletown.
Ed Bailey, Town of Middlefield.
Beverly Lawrence.
Jonathan Shapiro, Council.
Joe Comerford, Administrator.
And just for the record, Laura Francis is going to try to join us as well, but is not currently present. All right, moving on to item number 3 on the agenda, discussion of the MOA with possible action. Joe, do you want to kind of give us a quick recap, and then if Jonathan has anything to add?
Sure. So luckily with this group, everyone was already on the call, the joint meeting. So, so obviously the committees approved everything. The estuary board yesterday approved it to go over to CONDOT. And just to say on the record that it was reviewed by Jonathan and also Estuaries Council. So, and we did accept all the recommendations that were made by the our two attorneys. And yeah, so kind of go into what the next steps will be. Should we approve it now? The plan is that it will then be sent to CONDOT. I'm guessing we're gonna have to. We got to see exactly how they want it, just because you can't deliver it right now,
Right.
Since they're not open. But so one of the things that was discussed, I don't remember if we discussed it in the meeting or not, but I think this was discussed after that. Laura and Susan were thinking that we send it electronically to Dennis like today. And so he has a little extra time to look at it before the commissioner gets it, because it's actually, the letter's addressed to the commissioner because he's going to be the signatory of it. And so that way he has a little advance notice, and the commissioner probably won't get it till Monday.
Okay.
And then we expect about basically the month of February will be time for them to review and negotiate. And the hope is we could have it all agreed to and signed in March. The other thing that will happen is the minute we send it to Dennis, Dennis had told us that as soon as he has this draft, he will work on getting us the transit operating document to pay for the other 2 positions that we've been requesting, and that the committees authorized us to go ahead and start advertising so we could speed up the process of getting those positions on board.
Okay. Any other conditions that were added on by estuary at their vote? So it was accepted as amended by the joint committee, correct?
It was, yep. And I could tell you some of the discussion was really all the same discussion we've had in the joint meetings. But it was decided to just leave it as is and move,
Okay.
present it that way.
I suppose the points were, what's going to wind up coming down to negotiating.
There was question on to what the next steps are. Question on, and some of the someone was getting into the details of what's next, right? But in terms of what's in the agreement, the questions were, one was on the can CONDOT commit to, make sure it's not can CONDOT commit to federal funds, the same thing that we discussed at our meeting.
Yeah.
And then the rest really was kind of, well, how are we going to make sure they keep moving on the property? And it was, it was the how do we make sure it's happening? And so we reviewed that what was added on the committee.
Mhm.
The committee that will be responsible for reviewing that everything's moving along, and if not, can pause everything.
Okay.
So,
Yeah,
so that was really,
yeah, and I would say that yeah, there's plenty of items in this agreement that Condot's liable to
Yeah,
come back to us with, and that'll be we have to start somewhere.
that's right.
and that was part of, right, that was
Yeah.
exactly Susan's response,
Yeah.
was that, we
can't
yes,
negotiate
we
with
know,
ourselves.
right, we know that they might push back on that, and and we've have some ideas of what our what our position would be if it does, so if they say, well, we can't commit federal funds, we could say, well, then commit that the ones you control, you will.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
If you control it, then you will still commit it, and maybe it's well, unless there's a cut of federal funds. So, so we have some fallback positions ready on the things that we know will be more contentious for them. And we discussed what the next steps would be, that basically if there's substantial change, then the committees will go back to the boards for reapproval. If it's minor, then we probably would not have to. If it's a lot of language changes and stuff like that, that's one thing. But we fully expect that there'll be some substantial changes that we'll have to go back to the boards to reapprove before final signature.
All right. Before we open up discussion of members of the board, Jonathan, did you have anything else you wanted to add?
Nothing, only if people have questions, but I think, I do think everyone was here on the joint meeting the other day, so I'm assuming there's none, but happy to highlight anything if it's needs a private discussion.
Okay. So moving forward, I guess, why don't we take up a motion to approve? Is there a motion to approve the joint MOA?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. All right, I'll open it up for additional discussion before the vote. Is there any other discussion on the motion? I'll say one thing. Before we move to a vote, I want to thank you both, as well as Laura, who led the charge for Middletown Area Transit. And it really couldn't have happened without your support and your commitment to it. I want to also, on the record, thank Estuary. They've been great to work with, and I look forward to the fruitful relationship we hopefully will have with this, not consolidation, but
Expansion.
Expansion.
yes. So, so thank you, everyone. Jonathan, thank you for your expertise. Thank you for catching a couple of those issues early on, so that we don't have to revisit them down the road. And again, of course, Joe, thank you again for helping us steer the ship. So,
And I'll just tell you that the same sentiment was expressed by the Estuary board, appreciating all of your work, and Leslie, our the chairman, who, as we know, was very skeptical of this whole thing from the beginning. She's been I think she's really come around because of just a great working relationship that she has seen being on all these meetings of the committees of these two boards, and seeing how just how well everyone's working together, and how committed everyone is to making a really strong district in the end.
great.
Yeah, I would add that it's been a very collaborative effort on both districts and all its members, and I think we've got a very thorough document here. I don't think we've missed anything. At least I hope we haven't. And,
Well, that was Jonathan's first thing he said to me. He said, "I think you've covered everything here."
Yeah, a lot of brainstorming went into it, so I think it's a good document, and
Yeah. Well, and Dave Lee certainly was a big help too.
so absolutely, without Dave's very wise advice and experience, we certainly got a good, much better product at the end.
Excellent. All right, without any further discussion, why don't we take a vote? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
I,
Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, matter passes. All right, so if you wouldn't mind, Joe, relaying that to Estuary that we adopted it as well, and
I will do that.
and then
Told
as you
Susan I would call her
Yeah.
right away.
And then if you would send it off to Dennis, and then go from there.
All
if
right.
if you need, is there going to be a cover letter assigned to this?
There
MOA?
is. There is a cover letter. So I'll talk with Susan too about, we'll start, and I'll talk with you about getting it signed. We got to
Okay.
get, we'll run it to Leslie and then you to get signed.
You got it. Excellent. All right. Moving on to item number 4, executive session, contract negotiations with DOT.
That was if we needed it, but it doesn't look like we do.
All right, so we'll move on to item number 5, staffing discussion with possible action.
Yeah, so this was another thing we talked about at the joint MOA committee meeting, and this was that the special projects position and sharing that cost with Estuary 50-50 to bring this position on to help manage all these projects we have outlined in our implementation plan, which many of them start really soon. So we have a lot to do in these next 2 years, and the idea is to bring someone on to help make sure this stuff, bring us the extra help and make sure everything continues to move. So we can, so we can also manage the day-to-day that we have to do.
In terms of cost, how will this be absorbed in the current budget, and what do we think the impacts are going to be on future budgets?
So what the plan is to use our CARES funding.
Okay.
For both districts will use their CARES money. We just got another 800,000 in CARES money, so we got a total of 2 million. We've spent not even 200 of that. So this was one of the things we had talked about, that we don't want to do anything that commits us to expense ongoing, but this is a defined end of this. Not to say we couldn't move it a few months, but it's not a permanent position. So,
okay.
It's a defined amount of money. So I'd be comfortable using our CARES money for it.
All right.
And the attorney's given me language already. The attorney, I'll tell you, the attorney's first thing was, well, did you think about doing a consultant? That would be the easiest thing for short term. So I said, well, we'll look at both, because that's what we had said, that we would get price both. But so she did give me some language to make it a position that has an end date.
Gotcha.
So I've been working with our labor attorney on that.
Excellent. You need a motion to approve to move forward in hiring?
Yes.
Is there a motion?
yeah, so moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Excellent. Any further discussion? Okay, seeing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, matter passes. All right, moving on. Next steps.
All right. So I kind of covered some of that already. The next steps are we will send the email out. The email is going to come from Susan and Laura to Dennis, and then we're going to coordinate getting the cover letter on the hard copy signed and get it all over to DOT. And as soon as we have everything over to Dennis, like next week, we will start talking. Actually, I have my regular meeting with Dennis next week. So I will start on Monday asking him for that TOD for the next, the other 2 positions. And I will coordinate with Susan and Laura about also pressuring him on that to get that going. That will get us for the first, those first 3 positions that we really need to start moving this along. Yeah, I mean, so that it frees up myself and Jared to really start working on this. It gets us out of some of the day-to-day that we don't, the very routine stuff that we don't need to be involved in so much.
Yeah.
So, and then we'll wait and see what the Condot's comments are. I'm sure we'll have to follow up a lot there too. And Sam and I are trying to get a meeting with the deputy commissioner to, what I want to do is try and convince him that they should use this latest round of coronavirus related money to fund the operating expenses for the next couple of years. Because they could just assign that to us. We could apply for it, and it'll be just like our CARES funding, where, once they do that, once they, sign that to us in the split and we apply, that money is ours. And we don't have to go back and beg Condot every time, it's time to add another position.
Mm-hmm.
The money will be there and we can just move forward, and it doesn't get stalled every so many months as we wait for the next position to get added. Because that's a concern of all of ours, that they, not only that they're not going to do it, but even if they do it, the amount of energy we have to exert to get anything approved, as we saw how long it took us to get the TOD for the maintenance person.
Mm-hmm.
And now we're on the next positions, and we just don't, it'd be a lot easier than having to do this every time. It will help us move this along much more smoothly if we have that money and we don't have to keep begging them for money.
Yep.
Yeah. And then it gives them a couple of years to build it into their budget on, going forward. So that's our hope. The other thing we want to do is put in their ear that let's get design going on these facilities, because if an infrastructure bill comes out, these are great candidates to have them, shovel ready, so that we can get moving on them.
Mm-hmm.
It could be a good injection of funds coming in. So we want to just kind of have those really detailed funding discussions at his level, so that, because this is outside, Dennis doesn't do any of that funding side. It's in a different department altogether. So we want it to kind of come down to them that you have to do this way. So while there's money, we're trying to hit them and get some of that funding.
Awesome.
And be ready to take advantage of funding that comes. So
Yeah. All right. Well,
go for it.
we're going to try.
Yeah. Well, with that, I want to thank you again, Joe, and everyone once again. And with that, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All right. Second.
And a
All right.
second.
All right, guys. Stay warm today. Stay safe, and we'll have a regular meeting next month. Right, Joe?
Yes, we will.
Okay.
All right. Take
Very
care,
soon.
everyone.
Hey, everyone.
All right. Thank you, everyone.
All right. Thanks,
Bye.
everyone. Bye.
Bye-bye.